I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. In this episode of On Brand Taylor's Version, we're joined by Ann Handley, Wall Street Journal best-selling author, Chief Content Officer at MarketingProfs, and one of IBM's 7 people shaping modern marketing. Ann brings not just her marketer's eye, but also her mom's heart to the Swiftiverse. We'll explore how Taylor's storytelling fuels parasocial relationships, why the Eras Tour transformed casual fans like Ann into rabid ones, and what smart marketers can learn from the savviest hitmaker of our time. My interview with Ann is coming right up, but first, Ann Handley. You know, when I dreamed up On Brand Taylor's Version, you were one of the first people that I thought of.
I am delighted that I came to mind, number one. But secondly, I'm just delighted that you're doing this at all, because if there is anyone who deserves her own sort of mini series within your podcast series, it is T Swift.
Okay, well, we're going to have some fun with it too. So as I told you beforehand, I have created story prompts for the different eras here. And so if you pick an era, I will then ask you the story prompt. So what are you feeling today?
Ask me the story prompt. Let's go with her most recent. Let's go with Tortured Poets.
Okay, all right. That's okay. Here we go. Tortured Poets. Tell us a story about a time when you stood up for yourself.
Oh, wow. That's a good one. When I stood up for myself, like as a child, as an adult, is this through the Swiftie lens, or does it not
Yeah,
matter?
it can be any lens.
Oh,
So
interesting.
we're already coming at it through the era. So
Yeah, no, I really like this a lot. Okay, when I stood up for myself, my God, let me think about this for a second. I mean, just to keep it within the Swiftie universe, um, I think that I have gotten a little bit of shade from time to time from people who question, why are you so into Taylor Swift? And it's a little bit meta, because that's kind of what we're talking about here as well. But I think she is not just a genius as a musician, but especially as a writer, as a storyteller, and just as a cultural icon. And so I was on an airplane not that long ago, and a total stranger noticed my bracelets. I only have one on today, but he noticed them, and he was just like, it's always the guy, You know?
it is interesting. It does feel like there's, in the prompt of standing up for yourself, there is an odd, like you said, kind of a blowback that goes with it that I don't understand. But I love the clip when because I think it's something that she seems to experience and be aware of. But the New Heights clip that they teased early on, which was that she knew that if there's one thing that sports fans want more of, it's more of her on their screens.
Yes, right. I know. And it's like, I'm going to misquote her, but she also has a sort of philosophy, or a mantra that I've heard her say from time to time, which is that, if there is no need to basically poop on someone else's joy, right? If it brings them happiness, if it brings them joy, then there's sort of there's sort of a special kind of hell reserved for people who do that. But yet, that's kind of what you get a lot of times. And you see a lot on, pick any social post about Taylor Swift, or pick any commentary about her anywhere. And usually there's, underneath, there's always those comments who are like, what is the deal? Like, why are you so into it? She has terrible music, whatever. But it's like, why? She brings people a lot of joy. And so I guess the moment that I stand up for myself is I was always kind of under the radar with my Swiftyhood, as we'll probably talk about it. I've been a fan of hers since probably like 2008, something like that. And I decided that, there is some power in just claiming it, which seems like
Yeah.
a small thing, but, just stepping into that and talking about why I think she is so amazing as a musician, even if I am a little bit of an unlikely audience member, an unlikely Swiftie. That's the thing about the Swiftie universe. There's room for all of us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, why don't you give us kind of back up and give us the snapshot of your of your fandom, and then we'll kind of
Yeah.
talk about maybe what it means and why or how it works.
Yeah. So there's a few reasons why I'm such a fan of hers, and I alluded to it a second ago. But first, as a musician, certainly I like her music a lot. But the fact that she spends a lot of time and attention and care on lyrics. So as a writer, that's well documented. Just her love affair with language. Even when she announced her, or when they announced together, she and Travis announced their engagement, the post on Instagram was your favorite English teacher and gym teacher getting married, not your favorite music teacher, but your favorite English teacher. And so the fact that she is such a strong writer and identifies as that and truly embraces that in her music is one of the reasons why I really love her. But to give you a little bit of context for it, yeah, she's an amazing writer and musician and marketer and all those things. But to me, it really starts with as because I'm a mom, and my daughter, who is now 28. Oh my God, saying that out loud is crazy, but the fact that she's 28, she's been a fan since she was in grade school. And I have a vivid memory of she and her best friend standing on the porch and doing their, like, they gathered us around and they're like, okay, we got this whole routine like kids do. They were maybe like 9 or 10 years old. And they sang You Belong With Me, she and her bestie just going back and forth, their little duet. And that to me is my first memory. And I was like, holy wow, like this woman has not only been sort of part of my life, but it's part of my daughter's life. And her music and her work has become almost the soundtrack of my life as a mom and our lives together. There's so many moments that I can remember, like when an album came out, what we were doing, how we dropped everything and listened to it. Because it's not just about her or her music, it's the inclusivity that she creates, like the context around everything that she does.
Well, you talking about your personal connection, it kind of makes me think of the word parasocial is so clinical,
Yeah.
but why do you think that Taylor and her stories feel so personal to so many?
Yeah. Yeah, I think partly because of the way she writes, which is true of any great storyteller, and this as well as anybody, Nick. But she has an uncanny ability to tell a personal story that feels universal, and that's not an easy thing to do. To tell a story that's specific to you and about your life and about your breakup, and to yet make it feel like, oh, this is an experience that I had, even if it's not about being rejected by a boy in her case. Maybe it's about being rejected from a job or being judged wrong by, a friend group or your colleagues, whatever the case. It's like the pure emotion through her storytelling that, that's what transcends. So the situation may be like the container maybe specific, but I think she does a really great job of making the personal universal, of making the specific feel like, oh, I relate to that feeling. I've felt that way before. That applies to me too. So I think that's part of the reason why people have such a strong connection with her. But the other thing is, and this is like maybe part marketing and maybe just part Taylor, but it's the way that she makes her audience a sort of co-conspirator or co-author of so much of her work. And she does that in a million ways, through Easter eggs, through hints, through callbacks, through hidden messages in her music, but she really invites the fan in. She just doesn't expect you to be passive at all. She invites you to not just consume the story, but to sort of be part of it, to cast yourself in a role, which is just, I mean, that's just genius.
Almost right up there with saying that parasocial is clinical. I feel like, lessons for marketers,
I know.
but giving it that voice, are there lessons for marketers? Because, in making what you just said of making personal stories universal, and that's
Mm,
a lot of times the same sort of thing that we're trying to tap into
mhm.
as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, there are a number of lessons for marketers. One of the ones that comes to mind instantly is the way that she uses anticipation and reveal. So each launch that she does of I was going to say an album, but sometimes it's also, vinyl pressings in this, within this the same music. Every launch almost has a plot. There's suspense. What is she doing? She's going to be announcing something. There's rumors behind the scenes. What is she going to do? There are clues that she drops, like breadcrumbs that her fans just, gorge themselves on. So that becomes lots of fan speculation and starting to get involved in something before you even know what it is. And then there's that dramatic payoff. And so those four things, like that suspense, the clues, the getting fans involved or getting your audience involved in some way, and then the dramatic payoff, like those are things that I think any of us as marketers can internalize and apply to our own products and services, just to just to
Good, good. If you do the
laugh
voice,
that
then
off.
it's not as cringe.
Yeah, and I'll mention one other thing that I think she does super well, and I wish more of us in marketing, and I would include myself in this. This is not me saying like marketers need to do this. This is me too. She plays the long game so beautifully, and I think all of us in marketing tend to be a little impatient, right? We want the clicks, we want the leads, we want to generate if we want to take the MQL and turn it into an SQL. We want all of that. But I think she does a great job of rewarding patience with her audience. The clues may not pay off for years, which is insane, but they always matter. Everything she does maps back to something that happened before. And over time, fans trust her because she respects that sort of arc of time. So bringing a little more patience into our marketing, I think, is so warranted, and I think all of us can learn from that.
Well, it makes me think of an idea from another guest in the series in Sinead O'Sullivan's book, Good
Mm.
Ideas and Power Moves. She talks about the dynamic of dropping versus dripping,
Mm.
and the idea that I think the music business, but the many marketers, like you said, that want the big payoff, we design things around like the big drop, the big
Yeah.
reveal, and then
Yeah.
we want to see all of the results. Whereas she is just kind of dripping things out over time, playing that long game.
Yeah.
And it's the same reason why, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law keep asking us, Have you bought the new It's like, we're not buying the new vinyl yet. We don't know all of the different, want to see what the whole landscape's
Yeah.
gonna look like first.
Yeah, right. And I mean, I love the way that she sort of plays with time a little bit and pushes against that. There's a narrative, not only in marketing but in our culture, that we have a sort of pathological impatience. We want the payoff. We want to rush the decision. And I feel this, within myself constantly. I constantly have to push against it. And part of that is because of this sort of hyperspeed world that we live in, and this sort of the urgency creep where everything feels like, oh, we got to work on that now. But partly it's within ourselves too. Like sitting with uncertainty is uncomfortable as hell. And so we need to push against it internally as well. And so I love the way that she sort of taps into that tension and plays with it. And in that way gets us more involved with what she's doing. And that to me is like such a key point in her work as a marketer anyway, but also as a storyteller, I guess. She doesn't give it to you all up front. You gotta wait, sometimes years, but it always comes around in the end.
On Brand will be right back after this. Now, back to the show. So, turnabout is fair. I have my cards back. You picked an era and I gave you a prompt. Would you pick an era for me?
Oh.
And I will attempt a
Do
wee
you have
story of
more
my
than
own.
this is just a clarifying question. Do you have more than one prompt for each era?
No, I don't.
Oh, so if I said tortured poets, you would.
It would be the same one, which
Okay.
I wouldn't tell the same story anyways. So you're because
Okay.
different things have happened to me. But I've only got one per era.
Also, I would like to object slightly to this game you fabricated here, Nick, because you're the one who wrote the prompts. So
Oh yeah,
you
but I have all sorts of different story prompts over around my office, different cards, different forms. I honestly don't remember which
Oh,
one
okay.
is
So
which.
there's
So
not one prompt for each.
I have not been studying. I've kept these in a, Ernst and Young has had them handcuffed in the days leading up to this recording. So
Oh my gosh.
I'm
All right.
coming in
All right. Um,
pretty naive.
all right. Well, I'll give you a prompt from my favorite. It's not my favorite era overall, but it's my favorite era from the Eras tour.
Okay.
Because to me, it's the point in the show where it goes from you're having a great time to you are at church and you will never recover. You are in hard. It's when she is into the Reputation era. So,
Okay. All
Reputation era
right.
is your prompt.
Reputation era. I was gonna say, my assumption on something different going to church was like I've watched the movie of the concert. I would assume the what is it, the folklore cabin?
Mm. Yeah,
But
the tiny house. Yeah.
okay, reputation.
Okay.
Uh Tell a story about a time someone misunderstood you and what you did.
Ooh.
Woof. Okay. A time someone misunderstood me. Um, I would, I always get back to this story of I was, as a kid, I was wanting to fit in with the other kids. My track team worked the Drake relays, and I was, I'm not what you might call your most typical athlete, so I was striving for acceptance. And we were helping at this big relay in Des Moines, and as part of our gig we got like these nice like Nike zip up trainer things.
Hmm.
And you're clowning around with your friends, and I really liked the trainer, but I thought I'm gonna try to be a show off in front of my friends to fit in, and I thought I'm gonna try to sell this fancy thing, and I was giving corny sales pitches to total strangers, and one was the head coach for the Drake University track team,
Uh-huh.
who promptly found, um, uh, well, I guess he was the authorities, and threw me out of the event. So I had to wait outside for the whole rest of the day, just because I wanted to fit in with my friends,
Mm.
and I still feel bad about it. I don't know what that
Yeah.
says.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
You didn't know that this podcast miniseries was going to be therapy
I didn't
either.
know it was gonna be therapy, but I am here for it, honestly. I
So we were talking about the tour, and I want to, we can do funny marketing voices if it makes it easier. But here you've got an in-person brand experience,
yes.
and but it was so much more than that. And you went twice, yes?
Yes, yes. I went once in Boston where I live, and I went a second time at Wembley Stadium in London.
So talk a bit as we're defining it as an experience.
Hmm.
Say a bit about the experience and what it felt like.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and I was saying, essentially in this kind of upside down world that we find ourselves in,
Yeah.
in almost every realm. I really miss the Eras tour because it was like so popular and I mean so positive. And she said, "Well, yeah, but football season's coming up, so like that'll be great because it's another like shared experience. Like everybody can sort of rally around sports." And I was like, I mean, oh, okay, but that's not really the same thing because in sports, there's a winner and there's a loser in this competition. It's very different than the Eras Tour. The Eras Tour was all about just the love of that shared experience, and everybody in that stadium. Like in Wembley, there were 97,000 people in that stadium, and everyone was so kind and so I don't know, just like so welcoming and so friendly with everyone. It's just hard to describe that feeling of being in community with total strangers, but that's very much what it felt like. And it felt like, there's no gatekeeping in Swiftyhood, like at all. It's like if you know one lyric or if you know all of them, like you belong here. And again, I think her storytelling builds some of that because the personal is the universal, but it's not just that. I think it's just the vibe of the entire event. The event builds belonging, and it doesn't put up barriers. And one of my favorite moments about being at the event was at one point. This happened at Wembley. I we were up a little bit in the stands, but not too far up. But we were right at the, what do you call that? Like right at the edge, I guess, of a section.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not a stanchion because that's like a temporary thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I looked down at just like the section right in front of us, and there's a dad down there. It looked like a dad with his young daughter. It looked like, and one of her friends, or maybe it was like two daughters. I'm not sure. He had a bald head, and on his head he had all of these like sparkles. For the lover era, which is like the lover era is like pink and purple sparkly on his bald head. He had just a bunch of sparkles up there. And then he had printed out his he had printed out the lyrics, and he didn't know them. Like you could tell this guy is not a Swiftie, but he printed them out on a piece of paper, and he was just like, "You belong with me, Sparklehead. You belong with me." Oh my God. I was like, that's what it's all about. Like that right there is the connection between not only the fans and Taylor, but the way that she just brings entire communities like into into her orbit, whether they were dads or moms or I mean just about anybody. It was so fantastic.
Well, and you've said that the Eras Tour really kind of cemented your fandom or
Yeah,
kicked it up a notch from
yeah, for
casual
sure.
fan into being a,
Yeah.
a rabid one. Do you think it was that sense of belonging? Was it something else? What was it that did that?
Yeah, it was in partly that sense of belonging, yes, and seeing just the positive vibes in the way that like basically all of our menstrual cycles just like they were in tune at that moment, like we all synced like right there. It felt that way, in other words, sort of metaphorically. And so it was
Because
partly,
it incled the bald dad
yeah,
also.
and even the bald dad, all even the bald dad, like his menstrual cycle also synced with ours. It was partly that. It was partly the community aspect, but it wasn't just that. It was also the show itself, which takes you through this sort of arc of her music, right? And it's not sequentially. She doesn't begin with album one and end with the last
Right.
album. It sort of flows like so that it creates a sort of musically, it creates a really nice arc. And it was so two things happened during the show itself. The first is that the Eras tour, and as I mentioned, I've been a fan since 2008, but I never really realized what I said earlier in our conversation, how much her music has become a soundtrack of my parenting. It's like she would start a song from Lover, and I remembered, like, oh my gosh, I remember exactly. Like, I remember driving to Brownies, and the girls were in the back seat singing along. It's those moments in life suddenly like surfaced for me, and I was like, wow. I didn't realize, like, you sort of know this, but it wasn't until it was laid in front of me that I was like, wow, this woman literally has written the soundtrack to our lives. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is in the show itself, there's a moment when she starts with Reputation, and there's such a mood shift right there where she's, you're already at like an 8, like it's already amazing, but then she takes it up to like a 12, because Reputation is just so powerful, so not just high energy, but really, really, what's the word? It just hits
Yeah.
super hard. And that was the point where I just felt like, this woman, like, I will follow you into battle, Taylor. Like, that was the moment that was like, because the music was so just moving and so powerful, and everybody in the stadium, of course, is scream singing along with her. And it was just that moment that I was like, it just really hit me that this is incredible. Like, this is something. And that was the moment where I just went from fan to like super fan. I was like, this woman is not only a genius, but she has moved hundreds of or so many people around the globe. And that was the moment that I was like, yes, this is it.
So, beyond your English teacher, storyteller, writer vibes of your own,
Yeah.
you're also a marketer that hosts an amazing event
Mm.
also with the Marketing Profs B2B Forum. And I wonder, again, the lesson of, are there any lessons that you learned from you do that in the jaunty arms, and but as you think about, because I think the B2B forum itself has a lot of those same characteristics, certainly in a
Mm.
different way. Not nearly enough glitter bald heads there,
We're
but
gonna
who
have that.
knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always this year. But do you ever, standing there at the Eras tour, do you ever think, you know, there's a kind of thing that we could do in our own way in
Mm.
creating this experience, this sense of belonging for our Marketing Profs members?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember it being that specific because I was so mired in it. I mean, I
Right.
wanna say yes, but
Sure, sure. No, but
I can't lie to you about that. I was not thinking about marketing profs when I was just having this religious experience at Gillette Stadium for the first time. Um, but I will say, yeah, of course, because there's again, it's about no gatekeeping. I think that's a really important piece of what she does, and something that we've also tried to create at Marketing Profs. It doesn't mean whether this is your first year joining us in Boston or whether it's your 15th year, with us. It's like, you belong here. We always call the opening reception welcome home, because we want to create that sort of environment for people to feel like, oh, I belong here. I feel seen. So yeah, for sure. Also, it may or may not have been a direct inspiration when we had, I don't have one on, unfortunately, but we had Marketing Pros B2B Forum friendship bracelets last year. So
aw,
that did happen, but that was a direct a direct correlation. But yeah, I think in general, just feeling that there's sort of this open door community that, just if you're here, you belong, like, full stop. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to be the smartest B2B marketer in the room. It's like, you don't need to know all the lyrics. You can be standing there with that
yeah.
sheet reading them off, and that's totally cool too.
Because I think that's a thing that mark some a certain there's a certain type of marketer that can be like a certain type of music fan that can gatekeep and wants to be the smartest person. And
Yeah.
so I think creating an environment around belonging, I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's true. And another thing that I'm just thinking about now that I'm thinking about this more deeply, and again, this did not happen on site while I was at the Eras tour, but this sort of idea of building a shared mythology, I think, also plays into, not just our event, but really the best events. It should
Yeah.
have a theme. It should feel like, through the through the people you meet and through the aesthetics of the event itself, and through the shenanigans, as I might call it, but the experience of what other events might call it, they should feel connected, like, into one narrative. Like, you should feel like, oh, I am at Marketing Profs event, or I am at
Yes.
an Eras tour. It should never feel like you aren't exactly where you are at that moment. And so I do think about that a lot. It's like, I think it's the one thing that I focus on almost obsessively with our own event. So yeah, I think that also sort of connects to how she hosted the Eras tour as well.
So we wrap up the On Brand podcast with brands that have made you smile, and we're
Mm.
wrapping up On Brand Taylor's version with a song, album, era that makes you smile.
Oh my goodness. Almost every one of them does, which I know is kind of a lame answer, but I love Tortured Poets quite a bit, in part because of the way that she collaborates with Post Malone, number one, but also the way that she features typewriters, which I don't know if can you see them back here?
I can.
So big typewriter collector, and so I love the way that she sort of surfaced that. So I love Fortnite for that reason, but I also really love Midnights. Like, those are my two favorite albums, and maybe because it's their most recent, and so they tend to be on repeat more often at my house. But those are the two pieces of work that I really love. On Midnights, I particularly love Mastermind. I think it's such a fun
Yes.
story. I love that one a lot, and I like Fortnite from Tortured Poets, but not exclusively. I mean, it's again, super fan. So
I love it. Yeah, I would. We are of similar minds
mhm.
because I would also probably answer Midnights and Mastermind
Oh,
specifically.
really? Oh,
So
interesting.
that
Why?
was why. One, I mean, I liked the lyrics, but what I really responded to was kind of the electronic
Mm.
sounds,
Oh, that's pretty good.
which now we have captured for posterity here. So yeah, that's the other thing. Every guest in On Brand Taylor's version is gonna have to sing or do a sound effect.
Mm.
Um, where should we send folks, Anne, to learn more about who you are and what you do?
Oh, you can go to annhandley.com if you want to subscribe to my newsletter. And if you have not subscribed, you should. It's at
Yes.
annhandley.com/newsletter. Or if you are a B2B marketer and you want to experience that sort of sense of community, um, then you should join us this fall at the Marketing Profs B2B Forum in Boston.
Awesome. Well, we will link up to all of that in our show notes, which folks can always find at onbrandpodcast.com. And thanks for being a part of On Brand Taylor's
Oh my
version.
God, this was the most fun, truly, Nick. I love that you're doing this, and thanks for including me.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.